Also, if you guys have people that wanted to attend but could not attend, this is being live streamed courtesy of Bits and Tokens. Where's the live stream link, Lorenzo? Did you post anywhere?
I put it. It can be the live stream link can be found in the Meetup site, on LinkedIn, on the Telegram channel. Or YouTube. Yeah.
So if you go to the YouTube channel Bitcoin Center Miami, people can watch the live stream for those who are not able to make it or who want to review this information at a later date to make sure that these compliance guys are actually being compliant. So come on in and have a seat. We have a couple more chairs to fill in. I hope you guys didn't get sick during our Basel, because I know I did. Awesome, okay.
All right, so can you please raise your hand if this is the first time that you've been to Blockchain Center? Great, awesome. So excited to see new faces, really. So if this is your first time, what we're about is education. We teach people here about blockchain technologies, not protocol specific. We teach everything that you need to know to understand the ecosystem. And as such, we are bringing you risk management specialists that have been in the business for years. So it is my pleasure to introduce you, Lorenzo Delzoppo and Albert Rodriguez from Corisma, Jaime Rodriguez from Preventor, and Blair Cohen from Authentic ID. Thank you for coming, and please be prepared to answer hard questions, the questions that keep you up at night, because they'll be able to answer them for you. Welcome.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. Okay, I will start with the microphone. Probably we will finish without the microphone before the end of the night. It's not going to be this long, don't worry. The whole thing that we are presenting tonight is like a turnkey solution for blockchain companies. This is something that we have noticed working in the blockchain space, cryptocurrency. There are a lot of holes, gaps in the way that is particularly KYC and anti-money laundering has been managed. And so we are here to offer you a use case, real case, something that 3 companies have been working together for the last year or so to put together. Is 3 separate companies that work with the same goal. Provide one place where we can take care of all the compliance needs of a blockchain company. When I say blockchain, I mean with a wider range than the typical cryptocurrency or crypto exchange kind of environment. Because blockchain, it involves also like a decentralized ledger technology or anything that is in some way is working in this space or with the decentralized ledger. Okay, the first company that we are talking and that I represent here with Albert is the Corisma solution. What we do everything since the beginning. It's like we take care of anything that is like we see your system, we analyze your system, we understand what are the gaps, particularly at the license level. We deal with the license, we deal with the state banking department, we deal with the federal regulators. So we help you out with the compliance manuals, we help you out with the training for your employees, and we provide the personnel that actually can help you out working in-house for your company. This is like a very important step because we understand new companies that they are coming out with great idea, something that is incredibly aggressive. They have this incredible business plan. They found the investor. They found everything, and they hit their face against regulators, federal, state level, SEC, you name it, and everybody comes out with something that, oh, you can't do that. And the secret is, yes, you actually can do it, but you have to do it right. So this, as I said, we will focus specifically on distributed ledger technology. A crypto per se has certain kind of connotation with this, but we are more focused on the blockchain environment. Why? Because this system that we're going to use also as a use case tonight is something that uses the decentralized ledger on the back end. This is not something, we are not going to talk about a use case that is purely crypto. So you won't hear that much about Bitcoin. Ethereum is something that is like, use the technology behind the curtains. Why it's so important, why there is so much emphasis in this space nowadays, because of the dark market, because like cryptocurrency are the dark market currency of choice. There has been an analysis that has been performed by Cybertrace. Cybertrace is a company like Elliptic. There are various companies that perform some analytics, and they determined that like everybody is expecting that the typical Monero or the typical these security tokens, they're called, the one that they are like they scramble the information, are the ones that are actually used by money launderers and everything. That's not true. This is a very small percentage. In reality, Bitcoin is the king of the dark web. Dark web is the place where everything is traded, from weapons to pedo information to drugs to everything, you name it. So this is like an idea of, and particularly like Bitcoin is also typically used in those kind of cases of malware or like ransomware. I don't know if you are familiar with ransomware. We had cases down here in Florida many times. Particularly, we had the case in Fort Lauderdale where with a whole city, the data of a whole city got locked by a ransomware company, and they had to pay a certain number of Bitcoin to get the information released of their citizens. Like these are actually citizen information. So the 98% of all this ransomware actually works on Bitcoin. So this is where we come into place, because there is a huge regulatory focus at different level, at the consumer protection level. You heard about the scandals with the ICOs. You heard the issues with money laundering, because, of course, everything has been used for money laundering purpose. The anti-fraud, the various fraud pyramid schemes that they are built on blockchain, on cryptocurrency structure, and, of course, the issue with fraud, with tax evasion. That, of course, it's very easy to evade taxes if you actually placed your assets somewhere else in the world that is not reachable by your tax regulator. I presented a couple of, just to give you an idea that the regulators have a strict focus on what's going on in this environment. I don't know if you're familiar with FinCEN. FinCEN is an office of the U.S. Treasury Department. So these are the ones that they rule this space. These are the ones that they understand what's going on. And they came out since 2013 with regulations and guidances. The most recent one was particularly May 9 of this year. It's very interesting, the one in May 9, because it's kind of, they resume whatever has been done before, and they condense it in just one guidance, and they define it very well, what has to be monitored and what's not. And it's like one of the most important things is that they are raising the issue of the travel rule. There is this rule that is named travel rule. It's a very common thing in banking, something that has been established for the last probably 30 years. The travel rule practically just says that the information of the customer should travel with the transaction. So let's say that you are sending a wire transfer, you are sending money somewhere. Well, the information you, sender, should travel with the transaction. That is the travel rule. Why is it a big thing? Well, because if you are a crypto exchange, actually, that's a mandatory requirement for you. So you have to be able to collect enough information to send this information to your next receiver. That is like another crypto exchange. If you have a wallet, we are not talking about decentralized wallet, but like we are talking for operator in this space, in this case like 2 exchanges. Let's say that you have an exchange that is holding your wallet. You have someone else that you have to perform a payment, a transaction in another wallet. Well, these 2 players, they have actually to transfer your information. So we are here, this is pretty complicated in this kind of space. That's why we are here today, because we are able to provide this kind of tools. Verify the information of the people that are actually the player in all this. We are talking about convertible virtual currency. This is like a recent definition. As I say, this is all legal information. This is something that is the U.S. Treasury Department as was openly disclosed. So this is openly available. It's not a mystery. It's something that they are telling you exactly. They found the definition of what is a digital currency. If you think that our regulators, they always come like 10 years after the game, well, that does not really happen, because in this case, they've been very proactive. They figure out, they say, don't play with the words, guys. That's not going to happen. Don't start calling, this is asset, this is one thing, this is another. No. If you are transferring value, guess what? It's value that it falls under our regulation. So, whatever kind of cryptocurrency you want to talk about, crypto asset, digital asset, name it as you want, well, you are actually, if you are sending it, if you are doing it for someone else, you are a company that is providing this kind of service, you are a money transmitter. If you are a money transmitter, you have to be registered with the U.S. Treasury Department, and you have to be licensed in the state where you are operated and with your client, where your clients are located. Just to give you a picture, I know that you can't see very well because the screen is a little bit small, but it tells you where the regulations are currently nowadays. The first one is the FATFA. The FATFA is an organization that involves like 38 countries in the world. These are like the most important. Everybody, all the 38 countries, including the US, has to align with whatever they say. That's why you can see right there, the US, it's one that the US environment is one of the most regulated one. This is the place where we are operating. This is the place that is probably the best environment to operate. I know that you hear a lot, oh, well, but they are not, the US government is not helping innovation and everything. Well, having a safe environment, having actually people coming forward with new regulation is much better than not having anything, and you are in the wild, wild west, and then somebody come in with a new regulation, hit your knees with a baseball bat, and your business has to crash. This is like the current timeline. You will see like right here, in May of this year, there is this big thing related to the travel rule, not only at the US level, but also at the international level. People had to align. Probably you heard about something that happened at the time during the summer. There was also a G20 in Japan where people actually talked about that, because it was quite a big thing. Quite a big thing because we are talking about, again, the information of the client. The information of the client has to be transferred together with the transaction. And, well, I threw in a little bit of news just to give you an idea what we are talking about at the fraud level, like what's been happening just in the first 6 months of this year. We are talking about $426 billion in cryptocurrency that has been in some way scammed, stole, or in some way they've been involved in something pretty bad. There was a huge part that was a South Korean event with people, but this involved like Chinese people, and so we do not know much about this particular occurrence, but it sounds like almost $3 billion were actually involved in this scam. It was kind of a pyramid scheme. The most interesting one is probably instead what happened to Binance. Binance, I'm going to talk a little bit more later, because Binance is one of the largest crypto exchange, and they had like about $40 million that were stolen. And this is only what happened most recently. Bitrex, what happened with Bitrex? Bitrex, you heard it, is pretty large crypto exchange. They applied for New York license in 2015, and they got kept on hold in between 2015 and 2019 because they could operate under the safe harbor. So they were not licensed, but while the license was pending, they could work. And then the examiner, they realized that their system totally sucked and was so incredibly bad because they had names that like Elvis Presley, Donald Duck, I want my money, this kind of very, and also, yeah, that's KYC. But the best is the regulator that write. The regulator described as obscene terms and phrases to describe the individual that were actually recorded as customers in the system. And this is very, very depressing from our point of view, particularly because they were dealing with, like they were transacting more than 200 cryptocurrency, different kind of cryptocurrency. They had 1.6 million users. They're pretty huge. Well, the state banking, New York State Banking Department said, you know what? I kick you out. We give you 4 years to really align yourself, your system, understand who you are, who your clients are, get out. So that's why their license actually got rejected, and now they are fighting that in court, and they are trying to get out of all this. Why they are getting so strict? Because there are cases like Liberty Reserve. Liberty Reserve was a company that actually was in Costa Rica. They issued their own token. Pretty cool, but they're practically used mainly for one thing: drug trafficking, Ponzi schemes, stolen identity was used. This is like got closed in 2013, so it's pretty old. But 2016. They started, the people that were involved ended up in jail. But they were able, in that short time that they were active, to transact about $8 billion in crypto transaction with their own cryptocurrency. BTC was their main exchange. This guy, probably you heard it, because Alexander Winnick, there is people that say, free Alexander Winnick. Yeah. He shouldn't. The guy perfectly knew what he was doing. It's not really the best. But the guy was extradited. There was an interesting story, interesting adventure related to this guy. But now he has to pay $110 million in civil money penalty. This is for the small guy, just to let you know that there is no small guy. This is a very interesting guy. This Eric Power. I love this guy because he was in California. He was doing transaction by himself, nothing fancy. He was going in blogs and offering himself to do transaction in cash. He would meet you at Starbucks, accepting money in cash at Starbucks, and give you back like Bitcoins. And he didn't do that many transactions, I have to admit. It was not, a big deal per se. However, when it was about $5 million in-person cash transaction. But the whole thing, he had an industry bar. So he cannot operate in that space because he was working without a license first. And then he didn't have any kind of anti-money laundering system because, of course, if you meet people in a blog and meet them in person in a Starbucks, your KYC are not that strong, evidently. But he got fined $35,000. Not a big deal. However, it was such a small player, such a dumbass, that it deserved to be on my slides. Sorry. Yeah, he deserved to be there with the billion-dollar transaction. And this is the pretty cool thing, because there is a whole investigation that was performed for this event. They were pretty good, the hackers. They stole more than 7,000 Bitcoin from Binance. Binance is huge. And Binance has very, very good policy, because since there is no FDIC insurance in this universe, they have their own, they self-insure themselves. So 10% of all the trading fees are used specifically for fraud protection. They are auto-insuring themselves. Love them. I think it was great. So this case were takeover attacks. So in reality, it was not Binance's fault. We are like a customer's fault in a certain way. But anyway, they were able to bypass all the two-factor authenticator, and they were able to steal 7,000 Bitcoin. The cool part is the cryptanalytics, because few companies, they try to track down, and I don't know why the graphics are really bad. I apologize, because this is like the cryptanalytics that were performed, and because this was originally about $40 million in value, 7,000. Now it's probably what? Probably just below $50 million. But they broke them down in small pieces, in small increments. In between June 30th of this year, we are talking about 2019, between June 30th and July 2nd, they were able to send this transaction different places, and the last chunk, they send it to Chip Mixer. If you don't know what Chip Mixer is a kind of company that is specifically created to scramble the information of like your wallet information. So something that is created exactly for this reason, for money laundering. This is an interesting case, because, as I said, there are some investigations that were performed, and this is to say that nowadays we have tools actually to trace down where this cryptocurrency ends. Why? Because, I don't know if you understand how it works, a cryptocurrency, but the cryptocurrency is nothing else than an Excel spreadsheet on steroids. It's like if you have a banknote and you write the name of all the people that are owning that banknote on the banknote. That's it. So they can try to scramble it up to a certain point, but in a way, there are always something electronically that is traced or at least traceable. How do we manage the risk? Well, that's why we are here today to speak, because, there are all these cases, frauds, everything going on. And managing the risk is something that in financial institutions, they've been doing this for a long, long time. I know that is in this space, people hasn't been that familiar. That's what we bring here as a value. We bring like a condensed package, something that is a turnkey solution. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. We already have the wheel that has been running for the last 30 years. We just adapted to the new technology with something that is particularly strong, robust, something that takes care of everything. The managing the risk part, this is apply every kind of business. You have to identify the risk, you have to measure the risk, you have to understand it's your budget, you have to understand that this has to be run all the time, you have to control, mitigate, and report to the people that really sign the check and really pay for that. And these are like in the AML world, the anti-money laundering world gets really nitty and gritty because, as I said, you have to actually do it. and you have to actually do it right. Let's say, if usually you have certain kind of tolerance in any kind of business you are, in this space, the tolerance is below the 3%. So we are talking about a very, very, very tiny, tiny space, very tiny tolerance for error. And it's something that can be resumed to something very, very simple. Who is really working on that? There are the so-called 3 lines of defense. And the business line, the one that actually talks with the customer, is the one that owns the risk, the AML risk. So they are the one that actually are guilty if something happens. Then you have the second line that is like what we represent, what we review, what we see, what we keep everything in control.
How it can be done with the new technology and new ways of doing things and leveraging the actual technology you have. Now, the whole idea is to do an integrated risk management system where you build a compliance program where you can take care of your federal and your state licensing requirements. Again, remember, anything you're trading with value, the state, the government considers you a money transmitter, so you have to be licensed to do that. But it doesn't mean you can't do it. So you're going to need compliance officers, you're going to need policies and procedures, compliance manuals, you're going to need a monitoring system, training, you're going to need independent review. Those are all things that are going to be required, but that's not like impossible things. We can help with those things, and they can be integrated into your system. In the AML monitoring, you're going to need identity management systems, financial crime risk management system, crypto analytics, customer risk profile. All those things to some of you may sound like, oh my God, I don't want to deal with any of this stuff. It's really not. It's pretty common sense stuff. If you're going to do, for instance, if you're going to have someone do an operation on, you want to meet the doctor, and you're going to want to talk to him. And it's the same thing. You're going to do business with somebody. Somebody's going to come stay at your house for a month. You're going to say, who is this guy? I'm going to do some research. The same thing. The people you do business with, it's pretty common sense. So it isn't impossible to do. So the idea is to integrate all of this together for you to be able to leverage your technology, your idea, and to use that to be able to achieve these goals without having to do all the things that you're probably thinking right now you need to do. Now, I don't know what the answer to this question is, but how many of you were born in Miami? We got only 2. Okay, I'm the third one. I grew up, oh, that's right, you're here too. I grew up in Little Havana in a wooden house built in 1923. Had no central AC. Okay, so my dad stuck window AC units into all the bedrooms. Now that's probably what you're thinking, well, why don't you just do central AC? Because my dad was an old Cuban guy. I'm not going to spend the money on central AC. I'm going to spend the money on the window units. The problem is window units eat up electricity worse than window AC, worse than central AC. And when you got all 3 running of them, all 3 of them, we had 3 bedrooms in the house, all 3 running, it's more expensive than having to air condition the whole entire house. And they break. I remember they used to freeze, take the cover off and wait for it to defrost, put the bucket under it. So you're probably thinking, to be able, for my system, for my platform, to be able to do all these things, I'm going to have to stick these window units in and attach. But the truth of the matter is you don't. We can do a whole centralized integrated system that goes into your platform and works seamlessly with your platform. Now, in this case study, this is a company, it's a payment platform that Lorenzo and I, along with Preventer and Authentic ID, have been working with for the past year. Now, this is a payment platform that pretty much works like every other payment platform you've done. It's got a few other things that are not relevant right now. But what we've done is we've integrated all of the compliance and the risk management, the monitoring, the KYC, everything into the platform, leveraging its technology. This platform is built on the Hashgraph blockchain, on a DLT. It's incredibly fast, and because of this speed and because of the way it's built, we leverage that technology that they have and implemented these systems. So all the boxes that you see there that are in the dark blue, that's the core system. That's the actual app. That's the platform, the payment platform. What we did was we integrated the ID into the app. That ID, the app uses its speed and technology and its interface to scan the ID. Authentic ID does its job. It goes to our AML system, which checks the name against all the government, the OFAC list, and make sure they're not terrorists, and make sure they're not drug dealers. It does all those things, and it's all working for the user. They just see they entered, they scan their license, their name pops up, they hit accept. All of this happens in the background. And the user experience remains the same as if it were connected or not connected. The key here is that the platform is protected. The platform is checking everybody. No bad guys. Is doing as best as the best they can to keep bad guys off of the platform. So we have the full integration, an interface between the AML system, which is Preventer, which is also interfacing with the OFAC system. So in that entire, you see all of that together, it's all working seamlessly because it's not a window unit in a window AC in a, to fix one problem. We didn't take the platform and say, okay, we got to check ID, let's take everything out, go check the ID, bring it back in. It's all working together. And that's what we've done, what we put together for this company to be able to them to have this and be able to achieve the speed, continue to maintain the speed and the integrity of their platform and stay within compliance. And now, after that, I'm going to pass it on to Jaime, who's with Preventer. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Albert, Lorenzo. Well, Preventer, like Lorenzo and Albert were mentioned, is an integrated system, identity management and financial crime risk management. which integrates not only the authentication of the customer, but also monitors every transactions, during the life of the customer. Preventor, we have, there is three solutions or three versions, which is Preventor FCRN, which is a financial crime risk management that is used by enterprise companies or financial institutions. It's been used by the end users. Preventor IMS, which is the identity management system, is being used. It can be used by the end user of the financial institution, but also by the end client. It can be used not only as the identification, authentication of the person, but also the financial institution can identify the know your customer and the know your customer. And the Preventor IMS ecosystem is where we're using blockchain, not only to do the authentication of the customer, but also to share the customer information so the customer can share the unique identity along the financial system or the business systems. What's happening today is one of the big problems or the big challenge that the industry has is that we don't own our identity. The identity is owned by others. If you open an account in the bank, you open the account, they ask you for all your information, and after that information is owned by the bank. The bank is the one that owns that information, that keeps that information, and in order to update that information, they have to contact you. And if you want to get any of that information, you have to contact the bank. You don't have control of that information. Well, by having a unique identity, you will own your identity, you will share your identity. If you go into the bank, you open the account, you own your identity, you share the identity with the bank, you can share the identity with another bank, you can share the identity with an insurance company, with any company in the ecosystem. Well, this is some of the features the Preventor product has. We are using the self-service onboarding, which is basically that the end user can open their own account, can establish the relationship with any institutions by themselves. This is kind of any app today that you log into your app and you create your account. Well, the same thing, you can create your account at the bank. You can establish a relationship with a bank or with any business. The IMS, the Know Your Customer, CRM, we are using machine learning and artificial intelligence to know better the information, to verify and to keep track of all transactions. Well, this is basically, the whole idea. What is the identity? The identity is that the identity has to be owned by you. That's the identity ownership, and that identity can be shared with the whole system, even with the social networks. Today you have to share, like I was explaining on the bank situations, but if you want to go into the 7-Eleven and you ask for a bottle of wine, they ask you for your driving license, and right there they have access to all your information on your driving license. If you want to rent an apartment, the landlord asks you for all your information, for your background and everything, and the only thing that they need to make sure is that you are a good actor, that you are a good person, that you're going to pay the rent. But they don't need to have access to your financial information, your banking statements, your background, the day of birth or anything. So this is, I will say that this is the future ID, and it can be Preventor or it can be any other application or it can be any other system, but this is how in the future, how the business is going to manage. That it has to be one identity that you're going to have on your app, on your phone or any place, and this is how you identify yourself, and you don't need to provide, or you don't have to disclose private information to others. Well, and basically this is it. The identity management system is just to know who you are, who you know, what you know, what you have, how you behave, and that system has to be a user-friendly, mobile-friendly, web-friendly, enterprise-friendly. Something that has to be that can be used on any platform. And in today's days, the technology is how you share your information. One of the things that we use a preventer is that we interchange or we have partnerships with many companies. One of them is Authentic ID that Blair is going to explain you how they do their own technology, but we compile biometrics with voice biometrics, facial recognition, passive behavior, device identification is how do we identify the person, how do we identify who the person says it is. Right? Well, that it doesn't define exactly, but identity verification. This is showing how the identity dashboard looks like and the KYC management. Well, what we do is in Preventer, we do like 360 identification, verification, and scoring. We use face biometrics, voice biometric, document ID, counterfeit detection, which we use Authentic ID behind. Social security consent verification. We make sure that the person that give us the social security is the same person that has the identity, if the person is dead or not. There is a lot of cases of identity fraud. Last year in Brazil, there were like 4 million people that claimed for social benefits, and they were dead. So imagine, it's a lot of fraud. My mom has 89 years old. She's retired. She's in Peru, and she has her retirement pension with a debit card. She has to go into the bank to retire the money, and then, she can be dead, and someone else can have the debit card. There is no in many countries there are not validation of if you're still alive or not. We do age verification, the address geolocation, proximity validation, because we have to make sure that the transaction has to be done, according to how the behave or the pattern of the person, and this is behind fraud, because right now credit cards, you see that on credit cards. If you pay for in a gas stations in Miami, and then in 2 minutes you are in Hialeah, you got your credit card or your debit card or credit card froze, and you receive a call from the bank. But that's fraud. But for money laundering, you can open an account in Tampa, and you work in Miami and you live in Miami. Why do you open an account in Tampa? What is the reason that you have to go into Tampa? And cases are like you have or the person is working in conjunction with a teller in that branch. We do email authentication. Yes. We have a big data. It's very secure. It's in the big data, and then we consent with the blockchain. How do we verify that the transaction, the whole stream of transaction is stamped in the blockchain? It is, but at the same time, it is decentralized, because we're working with Google Cloud, and then we're using latest technology on Dockerization and Kubernetes, so it's decentralized all over the globe. We use a web legal authentication, the FATCA CRS compliance verification, know your business for institutions. We keep talking about the person, but it's very, at the end, the individuals are not saying easy, but it's easier than an institution. On institution, you have to validate not only the person, but you also have to validate the ownership structure, the ultimate beneficial ownership, and because that's how fraud begins. We also do the screening against global sanctions lists, and we also interface with social reviews from collaborators on multiple applications. Well, and this is it. The self-service identity management can be used on any industry. It can be used on banking, lending, payments, remittance, exchange, crypto transaction, insurance, proof of even social. Even if you want to open your Facebook, your Instagram, or anything, you are opening, but there are many applications that you have a unique password or unique ID, but that's it. It's a unique ID for your email, but they're not verifying that it's you. That's why there is a lot of fraud also on the Facebook accounts and Instagrams and everything. So the idea of this is to obtain also social reviews from collaborators and connectors and get an identity score from your profile and to use it as an express lane to generate more trust and secure business. The idea of Preventor, well, yeah, this is kind of the watch list screening that we're using. I mean, it doesn't read power analytic tools, graph visualizers. It doesn't look much, no, go back a little, yeah, okay. Here it is, this is like a flow chart, how do you see it? Yeah. Here is here is the onboarding, how the transaction starts, then you do the authentication, screening, the KYC, profiling, Dutch risk management, AML monitoring, and at the end, this is the very end, that we get the unique scoring, which is from everything, that you're gonna get one scoring for your ID. Yeah.
Yeah, it's also converted from PowerPoint to play on an iPad. Fortunately, we are missing part of it.
We miss a cable. Okay. Now I'm going to pass to Blair. So he's going to explain you more about authentic ID.
Oh, thanks. You're going to put me in the last spot, preventing everybody from drinking, huh? Appreciate it. Blair Cohen, Authentic ID. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me here today. Am I blocking the projector? As you can see, these guys all solve some really complex problems, whereas what we do is pretty darn simple at the end of the day. We make sure that Albert is Albert and Lorenzo's really Lorenzo. Before these guys do any of their KYC or do any of their binding of the identity and creating unique IDs, it's pretty important. It's garbage in, garbage out. If you're going to use biometrics to authenticate people, it's really important that we know that it's really Albert's voice or Albert's face. But that's tough. Can we go to the next slide? Because today, the way that we prove identity, the way that we prove Albert is based on something Albert knows. We're going to ask him his name, his address, his date of birth, his social security number. Or in a really high-risk transaction, maybe we're going to ask for his mother's maiden name, his cat's name, his first car, something like that. But the reality is that's all data. Anybody know how many breaches have happened in the past 3 years? How many people's data has been breached? Actual. Let's just go with reported. 7.8 billion. 7.8 billion people's identities been breached over the past 3 years alone, and that is, like you just pointed out, only reported news. There's a lot of breaches that go unreported. So the fact is that being Albert is pretty darn simple. It takes about 20 minutes of research on the, don't even have to go to the dark web these days. Go to Have I Been Pawned, or there's 20 different websites out there that aren't even dark web websites. And I can get Albert's name, address, date of birth, social, and answer any of those questions that you might pose. So that's pretty important. And what these guys do, it's very important that we get the identity right. So what we've changed, and we've actually made it really simple, made it easier. Instead of answering a bunch of silly questions that anybody can answer, we don't use data. We don't ask you to assert any information. The only thing that we're going to ask you to do is take a picture of your government-issued ID. This works anywhere in the world. So we support 222 countries around the globe. Virtually every identity document that's government issued in any one of those countries. Take a picture of your ID, take a picture of your face. We make that process really simple. I'm actually going to try a live demo here in just a moment. We'll cross my fingers and I hope that works. I think that we have some of the same customers that Bittrex had, because we see Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse and obscene body parts all day long every day. So maybe we service them. But literally, just point the camera at the direction of an ID. We put the device in video mode, make it super simple to snap a high-quality image of your ID, make it super simple to snap a high-quality image of your face. We run a bunch of tests on that ID. There's 3 different layers. One's forensic, that verifies the ID has all the security features, all the patterns, that all the check digits match. We run about 50 different tests at that level. We run a bunch of other tests on the document to make sure that it hasn't been manipulated in Photoshop or some sort of image editor. And then run a bunch of analytics on the accelerometer, the gyroscope, the location those photos were taken, and analyze the EXIF data from those images to make sure that that all jives. Anybody want to guess how long that process takes? 12 seconds. You're pretty darn close. It's about 9. So about 9 seconds time versus the average out-of-wallet questions, asking your mother's maiden name, your cat's name, things like that, generally takes about 4 minutes. So in less than 10 seconds time, we're able to add 2 factors of identity. The government-issued identity document is real, but more importantly, the person at the end of the transaction is the person transacting with you right now. Using any other system, using just knowledge, anybody could come in and assert that they're Albert and get away with it. We're getting a 10-minute back here. Okay, we've already talked about the breach data. What else do I have up here? So maybe it'd be better just to show it. I'm not positive we've got a 100% answer on that. The deepfake technology is pretty good and it continues to evolve. We've got millions of different tests that we're processing in the background, some of which are fairly proficient. There are little anomalies that are created when those deepfakes are created that can be detectable, but the technology is getting really good, so it's scary.
Sound generation. I think that would be more worrisome.
Sound generation is actually, in terms of a biometric, if it's manipulated, it's the easiest to detect. Face is a little bit more difficult.
Having a deep neural network generate the voice of the person. How would you go about that?
So generally, we're not doing voice authentication right now. What we really specialize in for Corisma and Preventor is just making sure the identity is right. They do all their magic. Jaime's got all kinds of additional biometric modalities that they bind once that we prove that Albert is Albert and Jaime is Jaime.
Got a question. Is all the data you collected regarding the individual, is it actually secured over the blockchain?
No. No, it's not. We generally work with big companies like Bank of America, U.S. Bank, AT&T, Sprint. So this is really kind of all the rage in identity proofing these days. So a lot of them store their own data. For some of them, we do store the data as well. Yes, sir. We do both hosted and FIDO from a biometric authentication standpoint. That's up to the customer and the use case. Like in Sprint's case, for example, FIDO doesn't work that well. You know, if you're coming in and you've got all your biometrics stored on your device, but you lost your phone, you're defenseless. So in their case, it's all hosted. Sounds like there were some other questions. What's the next slide? All right, just to talk a little bit about what happens underneath covers in that 9-second time. So there's 7 different layers of examination. We've got the on-device. One thing I haven't really talked about is Catfish Net as well. So this is a pretty cool add-on and optional service to what we offer. The AT&Ts of the world, the Sprints of the world, the Bank of Americas of the world have found that fraudsters are fraudsters, and they do this for a living, and they hit them every single day. It isn't something that they just do one time. They have to do it every single day. Their electricity bill needs to be paid. So they get quite creative. What they've been able to do is give us a list of all of their bad actors. But it's not just the name, and it's not just the driver's license number, but it's also the face. So every time we scan an ID and we process an ID to make sure that it's real, hasn't been tampered with in any way, we also scrape that face and run it through Catfish Net to see if we've seen that person before. And if we have, and the first time we saw them and he said he was Lorenzo, and the next time that we saw that face, he said he was Jaime, and the next time that we saw that face, he said he was Albert, it's a problem that we can identify in milliseconds. The third level is all of our image integrity. So you talked about neural networks just a moment ago. Been learning for 3 years all the different techniques the fraudsters use to manipulate IDs, change faces, change the data on those. That set of algorithms is run to detect that. We actually improve the onboarding process for the customer as well, because just by taking pictures of that ID, we instantly extract all the data from that document. And if you think about onboarding with Jaime's system or the Corisma system, somebody's got to type all that data in. We eliminate all that data entry, which cuts about 3 minutes out of the process for the consumer, but gives you actual data. It doesn't allow them to mistype or manipulate the data that they're providing. The fourth level is the actual authentication of the document, where we run all kinds of forensic tests to make sure that the ID that's been presented is real. The fifth level is the selfie match. So with us, with doing the selfie, we don't make you blink or smile or follow a dot around the screen or move your head from shoulder to shoulder. You simply take a close-up photo, and then one a little bit further away, and you're done. From that, we're able to tell if you're trying to spoof us or if you were really alive in front of the camera when those photos were snapped. All right, it doesn't look like I'm going to have time for the live demo. So we've got the 5-minute notice out there, so questions for anybody?
Okay, first thing that I have to mention. This system that we are talking about is kind of a hybrid system. A hybrid, when I say hybrid, in between a centralized and a decentralized system. The system was designed for the private permission kind of network. It is where certain pieces of data are stored at the centralized level and other pieces of data, particularly at the transactional level, they are decentralized. This hasn't built yet with the ID built on the blockchain, because this was not the goal at the beginning. So, because there is a huge problem that you have to understand, that storing data on the blockchain takes a lot of space. So you really need a really efficient kind of environment. This was not designed for that. This was something that was designed for speed of transaction. That's why when you mention that where is the ID data was stored, that is stored in a centralized place, whatever. Instead, on the other hand, the transactions are stored on the at the decentralized level. That's just to complete the picture. Do you have any question at this point? Yes.
I know that companies that do this kind of like security stuff get hackers to hack them. How often do you guys do that?
Oh, that is part of the process, part of the launch. Before you launch the whole platform, you go through like 3 months, more or less, of testing. We are really the hard testing, currently with the platform that we've been working on,
Actually, right at this moment, we have a company they call them white hat hackers that are diligently trying to break into the system and find a way to find a weakness in there, and they get paid a bounty. We're paying a bounty. So if you can find a way to get in there, we're going to, pay you money. And, the smaller, there is always going to be a little hole somewhere you can get into, and that, that little hole may not be a big deal, but we want to know about it. That pays a smaller. If they find a way to, expose all our data, we really want to know, because we don't think that's going to happen, but we're going to pay a good bounty just to make them try really hard to break in there and find it. But that's especially on on platforms and on apps and on systems that deal with money, deal with value, with cryptocurrencies. You definitely have to have some type of white hat, hacker program to go in there and make sure that any vulnerabilities that are out there, you do everything you can to find them before they actually happen.
That's a good practice.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is there a use case where you guys are creating transactions from either originating from the U.S. to another country outside, and vice versa?
Well,
Okay. Are you talking about this particular project? The particular project that we've been developing in the last year we've been doing the testing with 2 particular countries that are south of the U.S. Let's say that it's just the south of the U.S., because of course there are some regulatory issues that has to be resolved before. And in one country in particular, they have a fintech license that needs to be applied for before even you start a transaction. And
I just want to say, from a technical perspective, things these days are written and are created and are developed and pretty much to work worldwide. The project that we're working on is being created from the beginning to be scalable globally. So it's more of a regulatory and licensing issue of being able to operate in other countries. The capability will already be baked in. It'll be there to be able to operate in other countries. The question will be from a regulatory, which our staff attorney here is the one that gives us all the answers. But as far as from an operational perspective, we try to build things that are scalable, because what's the point of building something, a scooter that's going to take you 1 block? You want to build something that could take you further.
So basically, I bring in my blockchain, and it's plug and play with your risk management system.
But that's the whole idea. Whether it's plug and play, it's up to what you have.
Birthday, so we want to also celebrate when everybody in the community.
It's Lorenzo's birthday, guys. He's 21. 21? We can take a guess on what fraction of that is.
That's how long I've known him.
Okay. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Lorenzo. Happy birthday to you. Make a wish, make a wish. Woo. We love to celebrate our community members, you guys. Lorenzo's been with us for a while, and he is great. All the way from our days at 50 Biscayne to our bar days at American Social, Lorenzo's been around. Sorry, I'll let you finish answering your question.
also, we have a raffle.
And we do have a raffle we'll be doing shortly. But just to answer your question, the plug and play depends on, I shouldn't say it depends, but we would have to tailor a solution to exactly how you built your blockchain, how your platform is built. The idea is to find the most efficient and most cost-effective way to do it. It's not, let's not put the window unit. Let's build a central AC.
Yes, and to conclude this is something that is designed specifically for the kind of business that you aggressively and enthusiastically are you promoted, okay? This is like the kind of team that we create, the kind of partnership that we created is something that we're going to listen to you, even if you come with something that is the other people, the other company, they're going to think that is totally crazy. We say, okay, let's see how crazy it is and see how far you want to take it. That's the whole thing. Like, there is room. There is. Regulation are not bad. Regulation are not your enemy. A regulation are something that if you understand them, if you don't think as an enemy, you can work that with those that actually, if you're doing the right thing, you are ahead of anybody else. That is the secret. And we have the tool, we have the technology. As I said, you want to place it on the blockchain, you're going to place it on the blockchain. Don't worry about that. It's just give us a blockchain that in some way has some hashes that we can connect with the database, and we can work with the amount of metadata that we're going to throw into that. Because, I'm sorry, an ID is huge, okay? An ID is huge, a picture is huge, a PDF file that for you is great to email. Guess what? Nowadays, this presentation that we see back is 78 megabytes. Try to email 78 megabytes. It's not going to go anywhere. That's why we have to say same thing. Same thing is on the blockchain. Blockchain, you want to be, imagine, you want that to be fast, you have to figure out a way, you just store the hashes, that the hash is like this crypto thingy, encrypted, that reaches a place where everything is stored. You figure out a way.
That's the key point here, since it's really not practical to put 78 megabyte, a license or put tax returns or all this information on the blockchain and keep moving that around as secure as, as it may be. So the idea is to get that done in the beginning, get that done up front. So then all you have to do is you already have the insurance. You already have the assurances that you've verified who this person is, you've verified where they're at and who they are. So now you can just deal in the hashes, the little 64-bit pieces of information that you can run back and forth on the blockchain without a problem, instead of trying to, as sticking a square peg in a round hole. It's not gonna go in there. So the idea is to get it done up front, get it done quickly, efficiently, and then you can do what you're doing. That's what we talk about, leveraging your technology, using your technology to get it done first, so then your technology can do what it was designed to do.
All right, guys, let's give it up.
Say hello to everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, everybody. I've been working for the last year because it's been a challenge. It has been extremely exciting. And that's why we are here. 90%.
Did everybody last chance to put your business card in there? I'm not going to lie, I'm going to KYC AML everyone. For an Amazon Echo. Everyone put their card in there? We're going to let the birthday boy pick?
I'm going to pick it. I'm going to pick it. No, you're not going to.
Pick mine.
Really? Matthew?
Matthew Mono! Matt's probably guarding the...
Matthew, really?
Me! He's giving it to me!
Come on. Okay.
Don't look, Lorenzo.
I don't. I did it the first time.
ZK Snarks, don't look.
No. You do it.
He picked mine and he put it back. He picked mine and he put it back. I saw that.
All right. Salusoli and Associate. Oh, look who's there. It's Federica.
Federica ran our last raffle too.
Don't say that it's an Italian mafia, okay?
Welcome to the Italian Mafia, you guys. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on to another Crypto Mondays. We are definitely going to be having more of these, but this is the last one of the year, so it's super special. Enjoy some cake. We all are also all going over to Lost Boy afterwards if you're interested. Lost Boy is a local Flagler Street bar, and they offer us with the Blockchain Center 50% off drinks on Monday. So if you tell them Bitcoin, they will give you half off. Also, if you guys know, have a happy new year, have a happy holidays. But the North American Bitcoin Conference is coming up the week of the week of Monday, January 13th. So we are going to have a lot of back-to-back events. We have some really big exchanges that have already booked space here at the center. And if you guys are interested in learning more about that, speak to myself, speak to Maria, speak to Scott right here. And hope you guys enjoy your time here at the center.